Next up in the series of the Sonata Suite applications, we got the Sonata Recording. So let's log in. I already did the installation process since this is very similar to what we had with the Sonata switchboard. So if you want to see the process, just rewatch the first 2 minutes of the Sonata switchboard lesson to refresh your memory. But for now, let's go ahead and log in. So this is the Sonata Suite recordings. And the first thing that we have here is the panel. So to begin with the configuration of the Sonata Suite recordings, let's start by going to the settings and taking a look into a couple of things here. So the Sonata Suite recordings is designed to allow us to manage the different recordings that we have inside of VitalPBX. Because remember that VitalPBX natively it can record calls without the need of any additional applications or licensing. But as you might remember from the ZDR, it can get a little bit difficult to search the different calls. And if you go to the directories to where the recordings are located at, it can get even a little bit harder than looking at them through the CDR. So we created the Sonata Suite Recordings application so you can manage your different recordings and you can organize your different recordings so you can easily find them and you can monitor them even better. So when we're setting up Sonata Suite Recording, the first thing that we have to do is create some flag profiles. And what are flag profiles? So flag profiles are basically tags that we can add to the different call recordings. So the first thing that we're going to do here is that we're going to name these call recordings. So I'm going to name this sales, just so that I know that this is the flag profile for the sales team. Because you will see in just a moment that we assign these flag profiles to different teams so we can have different groups of extensions. So if we have a support team, well, we can have a group of extension that has a specific flag profile. Then a sales team will have another, and then the support team will have another. So we can create the different profiles here. So here we can say this is new sale. We're going to give this a green flag. Add, and then we're going to have no sale. This is going to be a brown flag. We're going to have a new customer, and we're going to call this one select this one a blue flag. And now you get the idea of creating the different tags for the different types of calls that we can have. So you create the flags that you require for this specific team. So you can create as many flags as there are callers here. And this would be plenty of flags that you can have for your system. So whenever we have all the flags that we like, we can go ahead and click on Save. So we have created the flag profile, and you can see that the navigation and the look of the Sonata Suite recordings is quite similar to VitalPBX. So if we go to the top right corner, we have a list icon where we can see the list of the different flag profiles that we have created. So once we have the different flag profiles created, we can go ahead and create the different teams. So here on teams, we can create the different teams that we will assign extensions to. So once again, so we can group these extensions into teams. So let's call this one again sales. So we're going to assign the flag profile sales. And once we have the flag profile and the team name, we can go ahead and save. And once again, you can see the list over here on the top right hand corner. Once we have our teams, we can go ahead and perform a synchronization. So synchronization will mean that we synchronize the extensions in VitalPBX with the Sonata Recordings application. So here we can first select the theme that we're going to be using. And then we have the extensions that we will use for this theme. So let's go ahead and select the different extensions. So once again, we meet with our favorite modal for selection. So remember that everything on the left is stuff that you have available, and everything on the right is stuff that you have selected. So we're going to select the extensions that we wish to monitor. The reason that we select the specific extensions, remember that when you purchase individual licenses for VitalPBX for the Sonata recording, you can purchase different packages. So it's beneficial for you to choose which extensions are the ones that you're going to use for that package. And also, you might not want to monitor every single extension. There are some administrative extensions that you wouldn't want to add. So different admins, managers, and supervisors that use or agents that use these applications cannot have access to those. So I'm going to select a couple of extensions here. So I'm going to select here my own. I'm going to select this one, 3801. I'm going to select and I'm going to select the 3816. So I can drag here. So with this selected, I can even add a couple more. So just gonna add them so I can populate this. I'm going to accept. So now I am going to go ahead and synchronize these extensions with Sonata Suite Recordings. So once we have synchronized the extensions that we want to monitor, we can go ahead to the next module here, the extensions module. So here is where you can see all of the different extensions that have been synchronized. And if you click on them, you will see which options are selected in terms of what is being recorded. And you can also change the themes for these extensions just in case you change them from themes. All right. So afterwards, that's all we're going to see right now from the settings menu. With all of this set, we can go ahead and refresh. So we're going to refresh right now. And you will see here that we now have some data on the panel. So these will be the different recordings that we have for the different extensions that we have added. So the first thing we see here is the panel. So this is the panel that we got here. So the panel contains the following options or the following data. First, we have the date where the calls took place. Then we have the time. Then there's the theme for these extensions. Then we have the extensions themselves. We have the call type, so if it's incoming, outgoing, or internal. So here you can see a couple of internal calls in yellow, some outgoing calls in green, and incoming calls in blue. Then we have numbers, so the number that has to do with the extension for the call. And you can see that it auto refreshes to get the latest data. Then we have duration. So this would be the duration of the different call recordings. And then on the last column, we got actions. So these are the different actions that we can partake for the different call recordings. So what we can do is we can add notes. So here you can add some notes for the recording. So I can say that this was a good call. And I'm going to save it. And now you can see that we have a timestamp. We have the user that left the note. And then we have the note itself. Then we got... So it's refreshing once again. Then we got the flags. So for the flags, here we have the different flags that were assigned. So the flags that you see here will be depending on the team that the extension involved in this call belongs to. So here you can see that we have the sales flags. So here it was a good call, so I'm going to flag this one as a new sale. Then we have a reference. We call this a reference number, but this can be any type of reference that you can have towards this call. So for example, you have a client number. So let's do something like CL55 as my example. So this will be my reference. And then finally, we got another button here for us to play back the call. I'm sorry, it's refreshing once again. And I'm going to take advantage of that refresh, so you can see that the flag color changes, so we can see right away which color flag it was tagged with for the call. Now,
thank you for calling VitalPBX.
So you can hear the recording, and you can download the recording from here. Once again, we will see in just a moment how we can limit the different options that we can have within the application. So whenever we create other users, each user will have different level of privileges. So you can download, but I'm going to close right now. And then the final option here is to delete the recording. So you can actually delete the recording as a whole. So whenever you click on it, you're told, are you sure you want to delete it? So rest assured that it takes 2 steps to delete a recording. And once again, you can remove this feature completely. Okay, and then you can see we have pagination here because we have more calls available for us to monitor. So this would be the panel. Right now, I am able to see all of the different calls because I am the administrator. But you will see in just a moment that we can have different levels of users. So you will have users that are agents that can only see the call recordings for their own extension. You will have the supervisors that can see the call recordings for the teams of agents that they manage. Then you have manager that will see the call recordings of the different supervisors that they manage. And then on top of that, you have the administrator, which can see everything. Okay, so with all of this information that we are adding to the call recordings themselves, what can we do with this right now? Well, the other big part of the Sonata Suite recordings is the reports, because you can create reports based on the call recordings. So the first thing that we see here is the filters. So once again, very similar to the CDR in terms of the logic behind it. So you will see that we have different conditionals down here, but we will get that in just a moment. We then have a description, so we can call this one my filter. I'm just going to create a filter to show you the different options. Just one filter. It's not going to make a lot of sense per se, but it'll give you an idea of the different type of filters that you can create. Next up, you have the team. So you can select a specific team to be part of this filter. Then we have extensions. So you can choose the extensions that belong to that team. So in this case, I'm going to select every single extension. Then we have flags. So here you can choose the different flags that belong to the team that you have selected. So you can add them to your filter. So I can add those flags. Then down here, as I mentioned, similar to the CDR, we have some conditionals, though they are specialized for the recordings and the different data that we can add to them. So the first thing we have here is and. Well, the condition. So you can choose between and or. So whenever you're choosing for each one of these options, remember that and basically means that this condition is required. But whenever you have or, this condition basically becomes optional when you combine it with other conditions. So it can either have it or not. Then you can search by. So here you can search by called to, so the destination basically. Then you have the duration, so how long the call recording lasts. Then you have notes, so you can search based on the notes content. Then you have call type, so you can search based on the type of the call, so if it's incoming, outgoing, or internal. Then you have reference, so you can base the call on your reference. And finally, you have rating. And we will see in just a moment how you can add a rating to the calls. Then, once you have your conditions selected, some of them here will have a mode. So the mode here can be begins with, so meaning that the value. So let's say my value here is 5. So begins with, it means that what I'm searching for will begin with 5 in this case. So anything like 50, 500, so on and so forth. Contains, this means that this value can be at any place of whichever number that was called to has it. So it can be in the middle, at the end. So applicable answers can be like 25, 500, 151, so on and so forth. Ends with, this means that the number that I'm looking for ends with 5. And then exactly means that the number that I'm looking for is exactly 5. Okay, so I'm just, for the sake of it, I'm going to choose contains. Then for duration, I can choose calls that are greater than, less than, or equal to the value. So this would be in seconds. So greater than 2 seconds, for just as an example. Then we have notes. So we can select similar to the other mode with the begins with, contains, ends with, and exactly something. So we can have it contain the word good, for example. So you can search all of the calls where the notes were something that was good. Then for the call type, once again, we can search for internal, incoming, and outgoing. And mode does not actually have any option here. You cannot select it because these values are absolute, so they can only be any of these 3. Then we can select reference. So once again, here we have the ones that back our different modes. Sorry. And we can say that the reference begins with CL dash, just as an example. And then finally, we have the rating. So the rating can be greater than, less than, or equals to 1 star, 2 star, 3 stars, 4 stars. So we will see how you can apply a rating in just a moment. So once you have gone around and created your filters how you like them, you can go ahead and save. And once you save, you will be able to see your list of filters over here. I already had one over here. But these are the different filters that we can create. So you choose accordingly to whichever type of call you're searching for. Then we have search calls. So here we can place the search for the calls. So whenever we select a filter, so here you will see that this filter automatically populates the other options here. So if you're making a search that is constantly the same type of search, you might want to use the filter to have that type of consistency. So in this case, I'm just gonna choose none. But I am still able to make different types of filters directly on the call search. So for the team, I can select the team, and this enables the flags option. Then we have reference, so we can choose based on the reference. We have a date range, so this will be the date range through which we're going to search the different calls. So then we have flags. So let's select the new sale. Extensions. We have the different extensions that belong to the team that we selected. Then we have notes if we want to search based on notes. And finally, we have destination. So whenever you have these selections, how you like them, you can go ahead and place your search. So here you can see that it actually found the call based on the criteria that I have here. So it's basically just give me all of the calls that have the green flag, which is new sale. So that's what it did. And once you have this data, you can see that it's very similar to what we got in the panel. We just now got the addition of the rating. So we can add a rating of 1 star, 3 star, 4 star, 5 stars for our call. So we can add this even more information to our different calls. And you can come back and make more notes, change or add more flags, or change or modify the reference number, play back the recording, and download it, so on and so forth. Similar to what we saw in the panel, but now specifically for calls that we have searched for. So once you have all of this data, what can you do with it? So if what you're interested in is the information on the table, you can easily export everything to CSV. So you can have the information on table data that you can use on your different numbering applications. So you can create your own reports based off this data. And then we have the save option. So what happens when we have a save? Well, when we click on it, it gives us this prompt because we are going to create a backup of this report. So I can call this one my report. And then it asks us what we want to include in the report. So we include the recording files, and then we can select to also add the notes. So now, when I click save, it tells me that the call's backup has been scheduled. And now, if I come to downloads, here I will see the backup that I have scheduled. So these are the requested downloads, so I can see the date and time when we requested this report, this backed up report. Then we have a description that has that name, and then the file name as well. We can then see the size once it's finished compiling, because as you can see here on status, it's still pending. This means that the PBX is now compiling the different information to create this file with all of the recordings that we selected. In this case, it's just one. It's just since it's just an example. And then the final option we got here is to delete the backup. So right now, all we have to do is wait for this to be done out of pending. And once it is done, we can actually download this file and see what it contains. So once the report is ready, we now see that it is ready. You can see the file size for the report. And then on the actions, we still have the ability to delete it. But now we have the button to download. So Let's go ahead and download this file, and we will uncompress it to see its contents. Now that we have downloaded the file, we have it right here. You can ignore the fax test. This has to do with the virtual faxes lesson, but we can actually right-click on it and uncompress it. So we can now enter the directory. And inside the directory, we will have two main files. So the first one is a PDF, and the second one is a folder. So the folder will contain everything that we selected that we wanted to add to the report. So it's the call recordings, the notes, and the flags. So we can actually go ahead and open this report. So what we're going to do now is see this report, and when we open it, you can notice that it's exactly the same data that we selected for the report. So we have the call date, extension, the number, the duration, the rating. I forgot to save the rating, but here it would say 1 out of 5, 2 out of 5, depending on the number of stars that you added to the rating. Then we have reference. So inside of a reference, you have the reference number that you entered. But now you can see that we got 3 options here on the right, which the first one is play, if you want to play back the call recording. Then we have notes, so we can see the notes, and then we have flags. So if I click on the play button, well, it's going to ask me for permissions because it's Mac.
Thank you for calling VitalPBX.
But you can see here that we're actually playing back the call recording exactly. So this way, what we're doing right now with this backup is that we now have these call recordings offline, and you can then send them to email if they're only a couple of recordings, or you can upload them to some other storage. So let's say Google Drive, iCloud, OneDrive, to share it with somebody else without the need of giving them access to the Sonata Recordings application. So if it is someone that is just interested in the reports and the call recordings, you can just share that information with them. So next up, we have the notes. So when we click on the notes, here you can see the note that we left exactly at the timestamp and the admin, the user that left that note. And then finally, we have the flags, where we can see the flag. So if we zoom in, there we got the flag name. So once again, with this, we have successfully created an offline version of that same table that we can share with other users, and they can easily understand without having to navigate through different directories to see an order for the different recordings that they can have. So this document makes it quite easy for them to navigate and see a specific call recordings. All right, so with this, we can move back to the Sonata Suite recording. So similar to the Sonata Suite switchboard, where we can select which areas of the application each different user can access to, we can do the same with the Sonata Suite recordings, where we can create these user profiles, which would be the roles or the privileges that different users can have. So I'm going to add the name for this profile. We're going to create a supervisor. So I'm going to create a supervisor user profile. I'm going to call this actually my supervisor. All right, so then we have the type of users that we can create. So we already have certain criteria for the types of users, as we mentioned, which call recordings these users can listen to and can manipulate. So here we select the ones that we're going to give to this user. So we got administrator. Let's go. Let's go after this one because administrator obviously can see and can do everything. We have agent. So the agent will have the most limited set of features, so they can only see their own recordings, and agents will never have access to administrative or management parts of the application, as long as you do not give them access for some reason. Then we have the manager. Next after the agent, we actually have the supervisor, which supervises teams of agents. So you can have one supervisor supervise multiple teams, or you can have a supervisor that supervises specific teams as well. But then you have the manager. So the manager will manage the different supervisors. So the manager will be able to see the call recordings of the different teams that the different supervisors that they manage can see. And once again, the administrator has all power. So since we're creating a supervisor extension, profile, we're going to select the type supervisor. Then here on the top right hand corner, we have the permissions. So here we can choose the different permissions that they can have with the call recordings. So the supervisor can listen to recordings, can add notes, add flags, references, delete recordings. No, I'm going to remove that. And then create reports. So here I am selecting these options and leaving this one out. So I'm going to accept this. And then down we have the different modules that the supervisor can access to. So us as the administrator, we assign them the teams. They cannot create users. They cannot create user profiles, of course. No activation from them. No synchronization. No schedule profiles. Yeah, we can leave this to them. We will see what they are in just a moment. And they will not create flag profiles. Oh, well, we're actually going to leave it because they might want to add or remove some flag profiles. Okay, so now we're going to save this profile. Okay, there we got it. If we come here to the top right corner, we already have a couple of profiles created. That's why I called this one My Supervisor, so we can differentiate it from Supervisor. So we already have some predefined profiles that you can use. Once you have your profiles, you can then go ahead to the users and start creating the different users. So I'm going to create this supervisor user. So I'm going to call this supervisor James McCarthy, just to give a fake name there. Then we have username James M. Then we will enter the password. I'm just going to call this one James M as well. Then we have the user type. So user type here, we can select once again the type of user. Depending on the user type is the profile that we can select. So the user type here, this will be a supervisor user. But let me show you every single stage of it. So the first one is agent. So here you can see whenever we select an agent, we can select a profile related to that agent. We can select a startup dialog, meaning the startup screen that they will see. So it will be search calls, panels, or filters. In their case, they do not have that many options. Then we have extensions. So this will be the extension that will be assigned to this agent. Then we have department. We can add additional information to see to which department they work with. And then tenant. That's right. So with version 3 and onward, the Sonata Suite recording actually supports multi-tenant. So you can create users that can belong to specific tenants. So you can go ahead and create an administrator user that belongs to a different tenant, so they can create their own users and they can go ahead and take advantage of the Sonata Suite recordings. All right, so after agent, we have supervisor. So when we select the supervisor, you can see everything is almost the same, but instead of extension, we have teams. So here you can select the different teams that you have created for these for this Sonata Suite recording. So you can select, for example, sales, and supervisors can manage multiple teams. Once again, so they can see the call recordings that belong to the different agents or extensions that belong to these different teams. Okay, so afterwards, after the supervisor, we got managers. So the manager, everything is almost the same, but for they, instead of extensions or teams, they got supervisors. So once again, whenever you have more supervisors, users created here, you can add them to this list, so the manager can manage multiple supervisors and see the recordings of the different teams that those supervisors monitor. And then finally, we have administrator. Administrator does not have anything to select because they can see absolutely everything. So we can go ahead and select supervisor because that's what we are creating. We're going to select the My Supervisor profile, the one that we just created. The team that this supervisor is going to manage is going to be sales. And the department, we're just going to add some information here, sales, but you can leave this blank because it's totally optional. So once you have that created, you can also add a profile picture for this user. So you can select an image over here. Then on the right side of the general configurations for the user, we have settings. So here on settings, you can select the language for the UI for that user. And right now, the Sonata Suite recordings is only available in English and Spanish. So if you want to help us translate the Sonata Suite recordings application, you can send us an email and we can tell you how you can help. Then we have time zone, so we can have the exact time zone for this user. If this is not set correctly, the times for the different call recordings might seem a little bit wonky. And then we can enable or disable multi-tab for this user. So once again, we have multi-tab so we can move quickly between different modules. All right, so once we have everything how we like it, we're going to click on Save. So the data has been added to the database, and we now have this supervisor user created. So can go ahead here and exit here, and we can go ahead and create more users as we like. Once you have your user created, we can then take a look into, well, let's take a look into activations. But once again, activations has to do with the licensing for the application, which you can purchase individual licensing directly for this application directly for this application directly. But you can also license this application directly from the add-ons module, or you can also license it through a licensing plan. All right. Okay. So next up, we have maintenance. Okay. So with the maintenance, module inside of the Sonata Suite Recordings. You can perform maintenance directly to the storage of the different call recordings. So the first thing that we have here on the General tab is clear oldest recordings. So we can delete recordings that are older than an N amount of days. So we can say that we're going to store calls for 90 days. And if the calls are older than that, they are going to be deleted. Then we have clear short recordings. So maybe you have a lot of recordings that are 1-2 seconds long, almost 3 seconds long. So mostly those are just people hanging up or leaving nothing. So it's mostly junk messages. So you can set up a clear short recordings. Then we have schedule. So you can schedule whenever you are going to be running these options for maintenance. We still haven't created a schedule. We can create one here. So if we come to schedule profiles, we'll take this little tangent here so we can quickly go over schedules. You will notice that these are quite similar to cron jobs. So you're able to create a cron to automate the maintenance of the recordings. So if you do not know what a cron job is, it's basically a way to tell a script to run based on a schedule. So whenever you create a cron job, you can here I'm going to give it a name, so I'm going to say daily. So whenever you create a cron job here or a schedule inside of the Sonata Suite Recordings, we actually give you templates because cron jobs can get a little bit confusing if you're not familiar with them. So for the template, you can select from the different templates that we have available here, but I'm going to choose once per day. So every day at 12 a.m., we're going to be running the maintenance. You can change this to be maybe 4 a.m. or so some other hour. And as you can see, we have templates for the templates. So we have templates for every single option here. So you can select instead of every day at midnight. So every 2 days at midnight. That can be a thing. So once you have your schedule profile created, we can go ahead and click save. All right, so let's go back to maintenance. So we said that we're going to leave the recordings stored for 90 days. And then we're going to clear recordings that are shorter or equal to 3. Then we will run this daily. Next, we have the option to back up the recordings. Yeah. So to back up the recordings, we can either back them up on a server by mounting it to VitalPBX, because remember that beneath VitalPBX we have Linux, and we give you full root access to Linux. We're not blocking you out of it, so you can easily have a network attached storage, and you can mount that to VitalPBX on a directory, and you can then move the recordings to a directory that you can specify here. So whenever you have a recording, you can then move it to that directory, which will be storing that on a storage device on the network. So this way, you do not fill up the storage for your VitalPBX installation, and you never waste any type of space. The other option that we have for backing up the recordings is FTP. So instead of setting up a directory here, we can select FTP, and then we can configure the FTP client here under FTP configuration. So we can enter the FTP address. So let's just say that this is my FTP server. It's not actually that IP address, but it's just to give you the example. Then the FTP port. Then we can have the Oh, well, I think that we can put this to 21 instead. Then we have the FTP upload path. So this would be the path that we're going to upload to. So right on the root, we're gonna put recordings. Then we have the FTP user and the FTP password. And then we have a public URL. It is important that you're able to access this FTP server through a URL, because whenever you're on the panel and you want to download or listen to the recordings, we have a way to locate the recordings, and they continue to be indexed by the Sonata Suite recordings. So by having them accessible through HTTP, you can still listen back to those recordings. So make sure that your FTP server also supports FTP. So there you have it. So your FTP server also supports HTTP. That's what I wanted to say. And then once you have your configuration how you want it, you can test the configuration to see that everything you input here is correctly. Okay, so we can move back, and I'm going to disable the backup. We talked about the directory. Then the final option here is convert recordings. So when you select this to yes, Sonata Suite Recording is going to take charge and convert the recordings from WAV files to MP3, effectively lowering their file size and giving you more storage space so you can hold on to those recordings for a bit longer. Okay, so now that we have this how we want it, we can go ahead and click on save. And then you can see here when it's going to be the next date that we're going to run this maintenance. So with this, we have fully configured Sonata Suite recordings, and we are able to create the different users. We created the different teams. We viewed the different call recordings, and we created a report that you can export and view offline and easily navigate through the different recordings that you have on your system and that you backed up through that report. So the Sonata Suite Recordings is a very great tool to manage all of these different aspects. So this is the Sonata Suite Recordings.